Hope you are all doing great. So welcome to our discussion. So today we are going to look at the first set of the cervical vertebrae, and that is the bone that are referred to as the atlas. So in this case, as I've mentioned, the atlas forms the first part of the cervical vertebrae, and it's a bone that is found in the neck region, which is the first bone that is used to articulate the vertebral column to of course, the skull. And we're going to look at different features of this specific bone using our illustration for the diagram on my right, so that we can be able to appreciate its role in support and movement in humans. So in this case, we're going to look at the different sets of course, the labeling that I've given in this. And as I said earlier, there might be some slight difference concerning the labeling of these specific names and the names that we may come across in different literature. Now, in the first case, I had said about the neurospine, which is in some literatures given as the spinous process. And in this case, we're going, in case we come across a name that, of course, we have not mentioned, that we can be able also to elaborate on that specific name. Now, one of the characteristics of this, of course, before we go there, is to be good for us to try and figure out what are this specific labeling that we can be able to see on this, so that in any case we come across them, then we can be able to identify them outrightly. Therefore, if we try to look at in this specific case, we're going to see that this part that is known as a transverse foramina. This is used for passage of arteries and veins, and of course some of the processes, or rather sympathetic nerves, which provide a pathway, of course, for where some of these of course, systems that I've mentioned for arteries, veins, and the sympathetic nerves to pass through. And then we have this transverse process, which we said that this attachment for muscles. Of course, we mentioned that these transverse processes are broad and wing-like, and they provide areas for attachment of muscles on this specific region. And then we have these specific parts that we call the anterior and posterior arcs, which are going to be shown at these specific parts of this articulation of the atlas to the axis. Now, in this part, we have what we call the tubercle for transverse ligament of the atlas. And as we said, this is part of what we said, which forms the ligament. And in a sense, from the definition, we had said that the ligament basically forms, is formed of a band of dense and fibrous, of course, connective tissues that are, of course, key in the function of the joints, or which enable movement of these particular bones in this specific region. So basically, we're going to see that the dense of axis, which we had shown, at this specific point, this ligament is going to assist for articulation and movement at this specific point. Now, if you can try to see at this lower, or rather upper part of this atlas, we have what we call this superior articular surface for lateral mass of hospital condyles. And as we said, this first bone is the one that articulates to the skull. So therefore, this is going to provide for that specific function. And then, as we said, this one, which is atlas, has got what we call a small neurospine. A small neurospine, of course, as we said, was this particular projection at this specific point, and then it's a short one. It's not the elongated one like the axis that we had mentioned earlier. So therefore, we are going to also to see that the transverse processes are broad, as I mentioned, and the facets for articulation of the condyles of the skull are broad, as we can see from this specific case. They are very pronounced as compared to the others that we had already mentioned in our first videos. So these characteristics of this bone that we refer to as the atlas is very important. In conjunction with the axis, they are going to assist for movement of or articulation of the skull to the rest of the vertebral column. And as we're going to discuss the other range of bones going downwards, we're going to appreciate the role of these two specific bones and how they can be able to, of course, play a vital role in supporting the concept of support and the movement. So by joining us in our next video is going to look at the concept of other vertebral column, a range of bones that we have already mentioned. So that will be that is it for today, guys. Bye. God bless you.